I want you to welcome back to our show from the great state of Arkansas, my home state, and my very good friend, Congressman French Hill.
Thanks, Mike.
Welcome back.
Yeah, you bet.
Good to have you, man.
You bet.
What a week. You know, one day you have Devon Archer, former business partner of Hunter Biden, and he testifies in a closed-door hearing. And then suddenly the next day we get an announcement that Trump's going to get indicted for the third time. I mean, this just keeps adding up.
It's amazing. What I loved about the Archer testimony was that Joe Biden doesn't know anything about Hunter Biden's business dealing, that they only talked about the weather. So I think weather must mean money. I think that's the code word.
You know, given the temperatures of this summer, I'm wondering, when Joe calls in, does he say, hey, Hunter, is it hot enough for you? Because that's what we hear all over the South these days.
It's just all talking about the weather.
Are there Democrats who truly believe that there's nothing there? Or do they deep down know, and they're just trying to defend the indefensible? I'm just amazed that some of them will go to the microphones, as Goldman did this week, and actually say, yeah, they talked about the weather.
No, I think the laptop speaks for itself. I think if the American people in 2020, in the 2020 election, had that data out, thoroughly vetted, despite Tucker Carlson's very good, interview prior to the election, it would have been a lot more informative. So the point is, Democrats know the laptop is real. They know the evidence on the laptop is incriminating. And so this is all spin on their part. And so the question is, can the House Oversight Committee, led by Jamie Comer of Kentucky, connect these dots and find that the big guy was absolutely involved in Hunter Biden's business dealings and taking advantage of selling the brand, as we heard this week?
You know, a lot of people want Speaker McCarthy to push forward and immediately go into impeachment, and I've urged, don't do it. Don't be in a rush. Because if it happens in a hurry, it dies in the Senate, and the whole thing is going to be said, it was nothing there.
Right.
Take time. Let it happen like it did in the 70s with Watergate, as the facts dribble out, and then the press and even Democrats can no longer ignore the reality. Right. That'll be the moment. And I hope that happens. And I think he's provided the right tone, impeachment inquiry, but not articles of impeachment, until it becomes overwhelmingly clear.
We do not want to go down the path that Nancy Pelosi and Schiff did, which was just really a emotional knee-jerk hatred of Donald Trump that turned into an impeachment. And it was an embarrassment to the House of Representatives' own reputation because they did not do the hard work. And McCarthy has urged both Jim Jordan and Jamie Comer, do the work on both reforms at the FBI, do the work on where this leads us on Joe Biden, and do the work on the border security challenges where many people want to impeach Mayorkas, the Secretary of Homeland Security, and Mark Green, right here of Central Tennessee, is leading that effort to do the homework, build the case, and then we'll determine where we go.
Yeah, lock the target before you squeeze the trigger. It's just kind of a good rule, I think, that you and I have done in the duck blinds together when we punted. A lot of people may not realize you were Deputy Secretary of the Treasury under George H.W. Bush. You came back to Arkansas. You started a very successful bank and built it up, ended up selling it and running for Congress, which I thought you'd lost your mind when you decided to do that. But because of the extensive financial background that you have, I want you to speak to what happened this week. Fitch downgraded the United States credit rating from AAA to AA+. A lot of Americans probably yawned and said, no big deal. First time that's happened since 1994. Does it matter, and why?
I think the downgrade by Fitch of the U.S. Treasury securities is a wake-up call to the executive branch, the legislative branch, but more importantly, to the American citizens. Because we're running $1.5 trillion deficits projected under Joe Biden for the next 10 years. And this is after Speaker McCarthy and House Republicans have flattened out spending and cut $2 trillion. And that's what's adding to our national debt. And two key points. We'll be pushing around 14% of the budget just being spent on interest. And interest will become the second largest category of spending in 2024 to our defense budget. So you're crowding out the priorities of the American people when you run these deficits.
Do you think we'll ever get to a point where we'll see a balanced budget amendment to the Constitution? It's something I would love to see personally.
Yep.
Every state has to balance their budget.
Right.
Federal government doesn't have to, and therefore they don't.
Well, we have two versions of it, and in 2018, then Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy put them both on the floor for a vote. That's the last time the House voted on a balanced budget amendment. I've endorsed it. I'm for it. I voted for it then. I'd vote for it again. And it's something that we should do because it forces the debate.
Yeah.
It forces that debate. I want to see who wants to vote no on that and ask them why.
Yeah. Because if we keep paying that much for interest, it means people won't have money for not only the defense of our country, but Social Security, for Medicare, the things that a lot of people have waited their whole lives to get in the preparation for. No highways will be built. It's going to be disastrous if every dime ends up going just to pay for the money that has already been spent a decade before. And that's what people don't understand.
And it's accelerated because when you're big and you have interest earning on it and interest rates are higher, it's having a bigger impact than it did during the Reagan years, for example, just 40 years ago. And so I see it as getting worse. And under Joe Biden, and this will shock people in this audience and those watching, we're spending $2 trillion more per year in 2023 than we were in 2019 on top of our federal budget, meaning he has authorized that much more new spending in just 2 years in office that on an annualized basis, we were spending $4.5 trillion in 2019 for everything, defense, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. Now it's $6 trillion. And you don't think we have a spending addiction? That's why Joe Biden is an economic illiterate. Bidenomics is a joke.
I was going to ask you to speak to Bidenomics because he's out there selling it as the greatest thing that's ever happened.
Yeah.
I don't see that you're a big fan of Bidenomics.
No, I mean, what comes after that is a banner that says mission accomplished. I mean, let's wreck the whole economy. We have a 40-year high in inflation. He's using mandates to make us not energy independent. He's using cost and skewing things through industrial policy, like saying you have to make solar panels, and they raise the cost. Everybody in America has to buy an electric vehicle, whether they want to or not. These are the kinds of industrial policy mandates that misallocate resources, which drives up the budget deficit. And if that's Bidenomics, count me out.
Yeah, and, if we got to bake our biscuits in a non-gas stove and, we can't drive a gas car and we can't change a light bulb into something that the government doesn't approve, I mean, pretty soon the government has raised our costs, but they haven't raised our paychecks.
Heck no. And the great thing is about the gas stove deal, I love that, because every little boutique, little restaurant in every little Democratic blue district, there's no chef in their districts that's going to cook on an electric stove.
No.
So there's no way. I promise you that's not the case.
All the restaurants will now be serving microwaved corn dogs. That's what we're going to have forever. Congressman, it's always great having you here.
With you, Mike.
Thank you very, very much. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, I hope you will now. The button is just below this video, and there's a little bell next to it. If you click on those, YouTube will reluctantly start letting you know when we've got a new video uploaded.